Hey everybody, this is Adam with Robot King Studios. Drinking coffee and working hard as always. Well, today I'm not working so hard, I took a little breaky. Just a little break. A coffee break. Now, some people out there get curious about things and they ask you questions. Like, hey Adam at Robot King Studios, are you going to do any paint tutorials? Are you going to show us anything you've painted in your videos? Yes, and yes. Not right now. Mostly because half the time when I'm working, I don't have a lot of time to film. So no paint tutorials today, nor any real film of things I have painted. But other people like to know, hey, Adam at Robot King Studios, what kind of paints and brushes do you use? What kind of glue do you use? Well, that's a very good question. So, for the record, I do use Games Workshop's glue. I do use various epoxies and putties and modeling glues. I do occasionally, for large pieces of terrain, use good old-fashioned Elmer's glue, because frankly it works really good when you get the various types of Elmer's glue. If you want to go ahead and throw it right on some foam or some wood, it holds pretty hard. I use things like the Woodland Scenics Realistic Water when I want to make water effects. I also use water effects from Woodland Scenics. When it comes to paint, sometimes I use bulk paints like these apple barrels for various large things I need to coat with paint. And I also use things like Liquitex ink. Now, I don't use this as base coats, I use this as top coats and highlights. Yeah, that's Liquitex ink. That's the kind of stuff that artists sometimes use, and frankly, I am an artist. So I use Liquitex ink. But don't get me wrong, I also do use the Games Workshop stuff. And I use this wonderful House of Color custom color paint. Now this is for models, though some of it I can't apply directly to plastic because of various reasons. I can apply it to metals, but after I've painted a plastic model, there's no problem with me going ahead and putting layers of custom color over top of it. For base coats, that quick base coat that sometimes you gotta do, for large numbers of models, I will spray them down with either Citadel, the Games Workshop base primers, but I also use these industrial cans, which I can get a lot cheaper in larger numbers. The colors work just fine, and frankly, they paint up very nicely. Very occasionally, and sometimes more than occasionally, when I'm clipping models, I actually like to use an X-Acto knife. I use an X-Acto knife because I like the precision of it. I can use it very subtly. The problem with clippers is sometimes you get little bits. What I can do with this is I can take the cap off and I can slightly carve off excess bits in very, very small layers and increments. It gives me a lot of control. But that's not all. I like to use an airbrush sometimes. I actually have a bunch of these wonderful airbrushes. These are also from Custom Color. Custom Color makes really nice products. Unfortunately, their company closed, so I have a gigantic amount of stuff that I bought because the company was closed, and I really like the paints and the products. So I have a bunch of their spray cans, too. But I also have airbrushes and paints from them, as well as some of their brushes. I really like them. But frankly, some people out there like to know even weirder stuff. So, just so you know, I do use Windows. Yep, I'm a Windows user when it comes to computers. I use a Dell laptop, but I also have a wonderful little white netbook. But don't get me wrong, I like Mac. I do love using Mac computers, but I use them for design. I also don't exclusively use Windows. I also use Ubuntu, which is a Linux-based system. And I love Ubuntu. I adore it. Yep. Now, I wish I had my camera on hand, because I do have a new camera. Yay. So, as you can tell right now, the video quality here is kind of low, but that's not the point. When it comes to video games, well, I love PlayStation games, and when I say PlayStation, I mean the PlayStation 1, because frankly, new games bore me half the time. I like older games. I also have a Nintendo 64, an Xbox, Game Boy Advance, but I also have a love for Game Boy. Frankly, I like the old Pokemon games. I really do. I like the older Final Fantasy games. The first few, and of course, Final Fantasy VII. But some people also like to know other things, like Adam at Robot King Studios. I would like to know, how do you make business decisions? Well, just so you know, when I need to make a big decision in business, I rely on my Gimli axe. When you're trying to negotiate with someone, nothing says, see things my way, like a Gimli axe. Yes, a big old double-headed axe. This says, hey you, see things my way. But sometimes that doesn't work, because sometimes people try to get the jump on you, and you don't have time to whip out your Gimli axe. So sometimes I use my flail to beat sense into people and get them to see things my way. Business can be harsh. You occasionally need a flail. But sometimes business decisions require some accuracy and some precision. So, I also have a 2d6 short sword for precision in business. There's actually 2 dice in there too. And they roll around. It gives my opponent a chance. I might only do 2 damage. I might do 12. My point is this. Each one of us has our own way of going about things. Now, my types of paints and glues may seem weird to you. My giant range of actual art paints, the Liquitex primers, bases, the Liquitex inks, also might seem weird. It's like, whoa, that's weird. But you know what? It's all a matter of preference. I read books. I know a lot of people out there don't think anyone reads books anymore who isn't a preteen girl reading Twilight. Well, I read actual books. I'm not saying Twilight isn't an actual book. I mean, it's printed and it's in book form, which makes it a book. I'm just saying I read some classic literature. Dante's Inferno, Paradise Lost, Don Quixote. I read books. Real big, thick, old books. I love them. A.J. Cronin's The Citadel. I read H.P. Lovecraft. I read Stephen King occasionally, but I don't really like a lot of contemporary authors. I like a few. Very few. When it comes to movies, I choose horror and action. I also like, superhero movies and comedies. When it comes to music, I'm all across the board. People think I'm pretentious because I listen to The Doors. That doesn't make me pretentious. Just means I like The Doors. People think I'm odd because I listen to the Wu-Tang Clan. and Kung Fu Vampire, Twisted, The Insane Clown Posse. But that doesn't make me weird, it just makes me diverse. People think it's obtuse that I listen to Marilyn Manson still. I like him. I listen to Cake, I listen to Bob Marley. I'm very diverse when it comes to music. I also like to listen to Squirrel Nut Zippers, some really, really old jazz and blues music. So, you know, I like big bands too. I'm diverse. I'm eclectic. I wear jewelry when I go out. I wear makeup occasionally, which is also funny. The point being, though, is we all have our own style. Each and every one of us. And frankly, if you're going to ask me any questions about anything at all, I'm going to tell you. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to work. Thank you very much. This is Adam from Robot King Studios saying good day.